Hello everyone and welcome to our Tech Tuesday tutorials number 122. Today we explore some Google Form tips and tricks that not everybody knows. So Happy New Year and welcome back. We're going to just go ahead and get right into it. The first thing I wanted to mention was preferences. Preferences is a little thing up here in the top menu that allows you to set basic preferences for any new forms that you create. Oftentimes we tend to create the same kind of form over and over again, and we want certain features just kind of automatically enabled. So the three things you can do right here is whether or not you want to collect email addresses, whether or not you want to have all questions required by default, and if you want to establish a basic point value for all items in a quiz. Let's say you tend to do 20 question quizzes and you want them to add up to 100, things like that. The next thing is a question type called the Checkbox Grid, which I don't see many people use, and I think it's actually pretty handy. To do that, you just go over here and add in another question type, and then go here and choose Checkbox Grid. And what that lets you do is it lets you then start adding in columns and rows, but they become multiple selection, not one choice per row, but multiple choices. And you can do things like this. What date and time would be best for you all if you're trying to get a consensus, let's say on a meeting or something. And then it looks like this whenever you go and publish it. And so people can choose various things here. Guys, this is almost like Doodle, but it's pretty handy, and it's just built into Google Forms as a type of thing. It's called Checkbox Grid. The next feature I wanted to point out, again, that not everyone knows, is the ability to go to a different section based on the choice you make on a question. Now, one obvious use of this, we do this with our sign-in form, where we ask people, what system are you a part of? And based on the question that they answer, it takes them to a different section of that form. And this is a really big form that then lists out the schools. So if they choose Appling, it goes to the section 2 called Appling. If they choose Candler, it goes to section 6 called Candler. And then right after this, you'll see it's a very long form. Appling, we list every single school for Appling. We list every single school for Bryan and Bullock and Camden and everything else. And what really is happening here is at the very beginning, they choose their district, then they bypass all 17 of the 18 different sections here, and they pick the one that they, for their school. And every one of these, after they're done, goes to section 22, which is the very last section here where we go into the actual information about the session itself. So it's kind of like they all branch out and then they all come right back together again at the very end to finish up the information about that area. You can actually build in kind of pathing to where if the student maybe gets a question wrong on a quiz, it branches to some follow-up questions that might help clarify and give them partial credit, and then bring them back into the quiz, into the main stream of the quiz, so to speak, just by setting it up in various sections. I don't know. You can get very creative in how you do this by taking people to different sections in your quiz based on choice, and they don't have to do the entire quiz or the entire form. In this case, this is a sign-in form. It's not a quiz. The other thing I wanted to mention was an update to Tech Tuesday number 22, way back when, in 2017. I never really did an update to this. With file attachments in forms, you can do file attachments. Okay, they increased the amount of storage, but the big thing that they did change, back in Tech Tuesday number 22, I mentioned that it was only within your domain. Nope, now it's for any domain at all, as long as both domains allow you to share files outside of your domains, which is about 95% of all domains do that. You would have to, by default, that's what it's set to. So as long as you can share a file with people outside of your school district, then this will work. Yeah, you can accept file attachments from people outside of your domain. So I've seen people sometimes, if they have like a media fair or something like that, and they need to submit, these big videos or these files, and they're having to bring them on flash drives or whatever else. And, honestly, you can just set up a Google form because it can accept pretty large files. And you can just have people attach the file, and that file goes into the owner of the form's Google Drive. It's really awesome, and it's underused. Okay, the next thing I wanted to mention was validation. And we're going to go into just basic validation for today's video because we want to keep it nice and short. Basic validation is the ability for you to come down here and say the response has to meet certain conditions for me to accept the response at all. This isn't a quiz. This isn't right or wrong. This is just whether or not you accept it. So you might say, I want your phone number, but I don't want them to type, just letters or something. And you can say this has to be a number, and it needs to be, let's say, a whole number. Or it's a number, greater than 0 or something like that. If you're asking for like their age, then you might say it has to be a whole number or a number greater than or equal to, let's say, 18 or something like that. Maybe they have to be 18 years or older. And then you can put in a custom error text here, because maybe this is for teachers or whatever else. I don't know. Point is, you can put in validation, and then whenever you go to view that question and they try to submit that, let's say like that, it's going to throw up the error and say, we're not going to accept this question because it hasn't met that condition. Now, the type of conditions you can set up are actually get very complex, but they're the very basic. You've got a number, you've got text, which can mean it must contain a certain thing in the text, or it has to be an email address and structured as an email address, or it has to be a URL. So if you're asking for their website or their Twitter handle or something like that, you might want to do that. Or it has to be a certain number of characters. You can set a maximum, so you can say no more than 500 letters or 500 characters for this. And regular expressions where it gets to be a little bit more complicated. And again, we're not going to go into all that in today's video, but there are some interesting things that you can do here with text or whatever else. I've had a situation once before where we had to set up a password to a form, and we only wanted certain people to be able to access this form. And this was like a nice little challenge. And this was kind of like a scavenger hunt, or really more like almost like a breakout room, where they didn't get the password to the actual test until they accomplished something, and then they earned the password like on a sheet of paper or something like that. And then they were given the password. So when they come in here and they try to fill this out, the first question is their email. Okay, the second question is the password. And if they try to type in something else, it's going to say that's incorrect, and it will not let them go to the next part of the quiz. So it's effectively password protected the quiz. And in this case, we set it to a regular expression that must match, and the text is going to be the force. And it has to be spaces, capitalization, everything must match exactly. In this case, we did not get into whether or not it was capitalized or not, whether or not it was plural or singular, things like that. You can do with regular expressions, which we'll do in another Tech Tuesday, just not today. But you can, if you just want exact matches, then yeah, you can do it this way. And they could not actually go on to the level 2, level 3, level 4, these different sections, until they were able to answer all of them. Validation can do some really interesting things, from passwords to just making sure you get the right kind of data. So the last thing I want to mention was a little feature in quizzes. When you're doing a quiz, you can put in feedback for incorrect answers. And a lot of times people miss this. When they're doing this, they do their answer key, they select the answer key and all that. Notice that you can put images for answers. It's kind of cool. You're going to start off by clicking on an item. Then you're going to click on the answer key. And there you can see answer feedback. And there you can put in your specific feedback if they get it wrong and if they get it right. Now, here's what's kind of nifty about this. They get this feedback once they submit the quiz and they get their result. You'll have to turn on the feature, or at least allow them to see whether or not they get their answer. You have to basically immediately after the submission or send them an email. And you really want to show them what questions they missed. Otherwise, you can't show them incorrect feedback without letting them know what questions they missed, right? As well as correct answers probably as well. You can put in any kind of feedback you want. Please reread chapter 5 or whatever else. But you can also do things like, oh, here's a hyperlink, and I'm going to link to watch this video, and this link can go to a Google Drive video. Now you have this one here, which just sends them to a YouTube. Put in a YouTube video here, let's say on supercooling. I can just select that one and say, okay, here it is. But then the other thing is I can just say, look at our study guide again, and then I can link to an actual Google Doc or something like that I've got open. Okay, here we go. This is just a handout that I have. And then I will add that. Oh, sorry. The link is at the beginning and the text. I had them mixed up, but there. So link first, text second, add it. And that becomes another item there. So if they get this answer wrong here, then that's the feedback they get. So when they view their score, this is what they see. They got the first one wrong. And here's the correct answer, and here's the feedback. Watch this, And if it's a video that's not in YouTube, let's say you've got YouTube blocked or something, you can put it in Google Drive and just use a link instead of using the video option. Just do a link, and they click on that, and it'll take them to the link, and they can then watch the video right there. So you can do a lot with the feedback, and it's not just for incorrect answers, it also works for correct answers. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed this video and I hope you found it useful. And if you did, go ahead and click that like button. Heck, why not support us and click that subscribe button. Click on the bell icon to receive email notifications, leave a comment or an idea for a Tech Tuesday video below, share this video with your friends, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.